Chapter 25. The future of humans' extinction is the ultimate destiny of every species. If not in a million years, it could be in a billion years. Extinction happens because of external forces such as natural selection and disasters. The friction with other species or even infighting could result in species extinction. The population size and distribution, colonizing factor, are inversely proportional to the probability of extinction. In that sense, humans have colonized the Earth pretty much. The population is enormous and the distribution is vast. There are no known immediate threats from nature or other species. The problem is the depletion of resources to maintain the population through a continuous food and water supply. Homo sapiens, like other Homo species and almost any other species, are doomed to extinction. Humans will likely play a significant role in extinguishing the human species. We will fight for basic commodities like food and shelter. We probably will use all means possible to exterminate the other human groups. The past punishing. The past of the human species has been glorious, just as a biological species, judging by the massive population and global colonization. Humans are the most successful species of all the species that ever originated. This assertion is based on the rate and extent of colonization and expansion of habitats. Shedding all the modesty, we should acknowledge that we are the pinnacle of the evolutionary tree in terms of existence and complexity. The present paucities. The present state of humanity is remarkable in some respects, yet the quality of the species is declining. Technology has diminished the gap between the weak and the strong, erasing differences in potential. Automation has blurred the distinction between the lazy and the industrious, erasing differences in motivation and skill. Artificial intelligence is poised to reduce the gap between the intelligent and the less capable, erasing differences in intelligence. As automation merges with AI, human purpose diminishes. With machines handling intelligence, decision-making, and labor, motivation fades, productivity declines, and personal value erodes. When there is nothing left to strive for, stagnation sets in. A world without challenge or purpose collapses into existential emptiness, leaving humanity directionless and obsolete. We are heading towards just mere existence, drowned in gratification without goals. To suffer the boredom of pleasure and in search of exotics bordering perversion, we will just be. To be but nothing. The future, if the way humans have been playing the game of existence, as a member of the globalized species with interbreeding across races and territories, there will be nothing new that will ever evolve from the human species. Unless a catastrophic event breaks down the barriers of the human species, nothing else will come in anytime soon. Russell Peters, a Canadian comedian of Indian origin, hilariously and yet profoundly puts it this way. This is a nice room tonight, you know. There are all kinds of different people here. I love that when I look out at the audience, I see black, white, Asian, just everybody having a good time hanging out. Brown, we fall under Asian as well. It is nice, different mix of audience like this and people at home, different kinds of people enjoying this in their living room, wherever. This type of thing is not going to be able to happen in about 300 years from now. Do you realize that? Because if we make it to 300 years from now, realize there's not going to be no more white people, not going to be no more black people. Everybody is going to be beige. I do not care. I am already beige. It is not going to affect me, But it is true, the whole world is mixing. It is nothing you can do about it. Human nature. It is crucial to remind ourselves that our society is precariously balanced on the delicate rope of science and technology. Beneath the heavy makeup of societal norms, culture, and religion lies our true animal nature. Without science and technology, our population would rapidly dwindle. Consider, for example, a year-long global power outage. Our way of life, as we know it, would come to a standstill, or worse, it would trigger chaos worldwide. Comfort levels would collapse, and the baseline of happiness would continue to decline. Communication networks would break down, and social connections would disintegrate. In such times, our true nature and priorities would emerge. Everyone would fight for food and basic necessities for themselves and their families. Readily available food and potable water would become scarce, if not entirely unavailable. With a high population density and limited resources, conflict would be inevitable. The strong would dominate, and infighting would result in starvation and death. Crime and violence would be rampant. People would avoid each other. Smiles and pleasantries would no longer hold sway. Human interactions would become abrasive, even violent. In such a scenario, other organisms, plants and animals, might eventually replace humans and reclaim the land. What is most fascinating to me, however, is observing how human principles, morality, and values would shift. Let us consider a thought experiment in which we find ourselves in such a dire situation. What would you do in these circumstances? Would you share your food with others? Would you beg or kill for food? I suggest pausing this reading to envision the scenario with complete honesty. Reflect on how you would feel, what preparations you would make, and how you would act. Who would you be with, friends or family? What strategy would you employ to survive, particularly with your family? Would you have any responsibilities towards society at large? In this scenario, the rules of engagement and interaction would be rewritten. The human, once soaring high with biology-defying values, would be reduced to animal behavior, guided solely by basic instincts. As I write this, I can feel a mixture of dread and aggression, driven by the need to feed and protect my family. Yet I am not physically the strongest. How long could I fight, and how long could I protect my loved ones? A peaceful option might be to retreat to the woods by the river, living off whatever food is available while staying wary of approaching humans, whether those settling nearby or fleeing from other areas. In this grim reality, groups like the Amish, who resist modernization and live off the grid with their own set of rules, might manage better. Similarly, the homeless, sages, monks, hobos, and those accustomed to hardship might adapt more easily. For them, a stringent lifestyle, minimal comforts, restraint from pleasure, and tolerance to pain are a way of life. The tribal populations living in jungles or remote islands, insulated from modernization, would likely fare better. Take the Sentinelese people of the Andaman and Nicobar Islands, who remain untouched by most modern technology, as an example. Our existence is heavily cushioned by science and technology, and we scarcely know what real existence is while we swim in a cocktail of happy hormones. How many of us would be willing and able to voluntarily downgrade our comforts and pleasures? And how many would do so voluntarily? Remember, happiness is not measured here. Happiness is found in every sect, group, and level of society. There were happy people in ancient times as well as in contemporary times. It is relative. I believe happiness is about the things we desire that others do not have and the things we lack that others possess. It is an absolute state of relative existence. Hopefully, we need not worry about prolonged power cuts as technology will continue to advance, providing us with more of the comforts we have come to depend on. Eventually, we will rely on alternate energy sources once we exhaust fossil fuels. In 50 years, nuclear energy may dominate unless safer and more efficient alternatives are discovered. In the meantime, we have time to navigate the balance between social order and individual liberty, bound to societal stability while pursuing our goals, pleasures, comforts, and greatness. The only angels we need invoke are those of our better nature, reason, honesty, and love. The only demons we must fear are those that lurk inside every human mind: ignorance, hatred, greed, and faith, which is surely the devil's masterpiece. Sam Harris. The contrasts in the unity of human life are true lies and true life, representing the divide between human-created constructs and inherent biological realities. True lies encompasses the societal and cultural layers that define human civilization. These include moral vocabularies such as shame, guilt, values, and conscience, which dictate acceptable behavior. Language provided the vocabulary relevant to the consequences of past deeds, such as guilt and shame, while also shaping prospective actions through words like courage and conscience. Cultural advancements like science, mathematics, tools, culinary arts, and comforts reflect humanity's drive for innovation and pleasure. Additionally, constructs like religion, caste, societal stratification, identity, sophistication, manners, marriage, and money highlight the complex systems of artificial selection that prioritize social preferences over biological imperatives. Social fitness emerges as a measure of success within these constructs, reflecting how individuals adapt and thrive in a world shaped by human values and norms. In contrast, true life anchors itself in biological and evolutionary foundations rooted in natural selection. It focuses on fundamental traits such as instinct, intelligence, language, and the brain's capacity for grouping behavior, which evolved for survival and reproduction. These innate drives emphasize biological fitness, a measure of an organism's ability to adapt to its environment and propagate its genes. Natural selection shapes these traits, driven by ecological and survival needs, making them essential for existence. Unlike the complexities of artificial selection, true life reflects humanity's raw, unembellished connection to its evolutionary roots. We will fake the life, with the mental hedonism, physical etiquette of decency, the instincts masked, intense disguised, the intelligence plays, and the mind pays in silence, with physical conformity and mental eccentricity. In peace, we ruin life. We pretend until we live death. We were told to be. We will tell the next to be. Yell if necessary, but we will not bail until the line is straight as a stick, marching an inch a generation. Human diseases. Dental cavities, or caries, represent a uniquely human affliction resulting from our dietary practices and oral hygiene habits. Unlike most other animals, humans consume a diet rich in fermentable carbohydrates, such as sugars and starches, which create an environment conducive to the proliferation of cariogenic bacteria, like Streptococcus mutans. These bacteria metabolize sugars to produce acid, which demineralizes the enamel and leads to cavity formation. The evolution of agriculture significantly altered human diets, introducing a higher frequency of carbohydrate consumption. Additionally, modern food processing increases the intake of refined sugars, exacerbating the prevalence of dental cavities. Our unique social and cultural behaviors, including the frequent consumption of sugary snacks and beverages, further contribute to the high incidence of this disease. Furthermore, the development and maintenance of oral hygiene practices are behaviors specific to human culture, impacting the occurrence and management of dental cavities. Depression, a complex and multifaceted mental health disorder, is predominantly recognized as a human condition. This disorder involves persistent feelings of sadness, hopelessness, and a lack of interest or pleasure in activities. The origins of depression are deeply rooted in the human experience, encompassing biological, psychological, and social dimensions. From a biological perspective, depression is associated with imbalances in neurotransmitters, genetic predispositions, and neurobiological changes. Psychologically, cognitive theories suggest that negative thought patterns, learned helplessness, and low self-esteem contribute to the development of depression. Socially, humans experience intricate and often stressful relationships, societal pressures, and cultural expectations, which can precipitate depressive episodes. Human self-awareness and capacity for introspection intensify the experience of depression. Unlike animals, humans possess a profound understanding of their own existence and mortality, leading to existential concerns and deeper emotional disturbances. Furthermore, societal stigma and inadequate mental health support systems often exacerbate the suffering of individuals with depression. Obesity and lifestyle-related disorders, such as type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular diseases, and certain cancers, are predominantly human conditions resulting from modern lifestyle choices. The rapid evolution of food availability, particularly the accessibility of high-calorie, low-nutrient foods, coupled with a decrease in physical activity, has created an environment conducive to these disorders. The industrial and technological revolutions have profoundly altered human lifestyles. Sedentary behaviors, facilitated by advancements in transportation, communication, and entertainment technologies, have replaced the physically demanding activities of our ancestors. Concurrently, the global proliferation of fast food and processed foods has led to excessive caloric intake and poor nutritional quality. Humans are unique in their capacity to make conscious lifestyle choices that significantly impact their health. Cultural norms, socioeconomic status, and psychological factors all influence dietary and physical activity patterns, contributing to the prevalence of obesity and related disorders. Furthermore, the psychological relationship with food, often characterized by emotional eating and disordered eating patterns, is a distinctly human phenomenon exacerbating these health issues. Genetic pollution. Variation is constant, while selection in humans is negligible. Are humans evolving or devolving? Unlike other organisms, humans and domesticated species exist largely outside the pressures of natural selection. In the rest of the biological world, selection operates continuously, yet human encroachment accelerates extinction rates by disrupting ecosystems. Consider genetic health in modern society. How many of us carry genetic predispositions to disease? My parents are both diabetic. My father also had hypertension and cancer. According to the World Health Organization, WHO, around 6,000 known genetic disorders exist in the human population. Virtually everyone carries mutations linked to disease, though many remain asymptomatic. Even when genetic defects are physically apparent, social fitness often overrides biological fitness in mate selection. The human genome is on a precarious trajectory, burdened by generations of relaxed natural selection, indiscriminate mating, and in some cases, inbreeding. Medical advancements such as antibiotics and vaccines have dramatically reduced mortality, enabling the survival and reproduction of individuals with deleterious genetic traits. While these interventions have extended life expectancy and bolstered population growth, they have also facilitated the accumulation of harmful mutations. The mean variance in humans is too vast. Social selection now prioritizes wealth and status over genetic health. An economically privileged individual with poor genetics can secure a mate more easily than a biologically fit but disadvantaged one. The result is a gene pool increasingly dependent on medical intervention to offset biological deficiencies. This trend is unsustainable. If the unchecked accumulation of deleterious mutations continues, the human genome risks long-term deterioration. Should reproduction be reserved for those with superior genetics? Certainly not. However, should we knowingly bring individuals into a life of chronic disease and suffering? The ethical dilemma is unavoidable, particularly in a world where healthcare is neither universally accessible nor affordable. A possible solution lies in genetic intervention. Pre-implantation genetic diagnosis, PGD, allows for the selection of embryos free from harmful mutations, though the process is costly and labor-intensive. A more transformative approach is germline gene therapy, correcting mutations in gametes or at the embryonic stage before they can be inherited. Technologies like CRISPR offer the possibility of preventing genetic disorders rather than merely managing them across generations. Ironically, the same scientific advancements that have contributed to genetic decline now present the only viable means to correct it. If we seek a future free from unnecessary suffering, intervention at the genetic level is not just an option, but an imperative. Science must not merely sustain life, it must ensure its quality. We speak blatantly and responsibly about the pollution of the air, water, earth, and even space. However, it is a kind of taboo to speak of genetic pollution. Dare we show an inclination or flavor of eugenics? We are not discussing enhancing the human genome, but preserving genetic health. Happy, stable society. A happy and stable society thrives on a foundation of shared values and responsibilities. Essential elements, like free education and free healthcare, form the backbone of such a society, ensuring equal access to fundamental rights and empowering individuals to reach their potential. Education fosters informed citizens, while healthcare safeguards personal and collective well-being. Productivity and personal health are vital contributors to societal stability, enabling individuals to participate actively in economic and social activities. This leads to growth while promoting mental and physical wellness. Simultaneously, respect for the common goods, public spaces, and societal rules ensures harmony, creating an environment where resources are preserved and everyone benefits. To sustain stability, no harm should come to fellow beings, the broader community, and the country. This principle fosters empathy and mutual care, reducing conflict and cultivating trust. Additionally, every individual must contribute to the community's collective identity, uniting diverse voices under shared aspirations and values. There are responsibilities at the individual level and as a member of the collective body, government. No piggybacking by individuals and no favoritism in government are two key reciprocal commitments between the individual and the identity. By weaving these principles into daily life, parenting, and schools, societies can achieve balance where individual and communal needs align seamlessly. Such a society survives and flourishes, inspiring harmony, equity, and progress for generations to come. A feminization of the man and masculinization of the woman. In wild mammals, masculinity remains a fundamental requirement for survival, dominance, and reproduction. Males exhibit pronounced sexual dimorphism, with larger body size, greater muscle mass, and heightened aggression necessary for territorial defense and competition for mates. These traits are preserved through natural selection, ensuring that only the strongest and most dominant males contribute to the gene pool. Females, while capable of aggression, largely maintain their nurturing and reproductive roles with minimal deviation from their biological functions. Any disruption in these roles, such as hormonal imbalances leading to feminization of males or masculinization of females, often results in reduced reproductive success and social instability. In contrast, human masculinity is undergoing significant erosion due to modern lifestyle changes, social conditioning, and declining testosterone levels. Physical robustness, risk-taking, and competitive instincts, once essential for survival, are increasingly deemed unnecessary in structured societies. Feminization of men, marked by diminished assertiveness and resilience, has become widespread, influenced by sedentary living, endocrine disruptors, and shifting cultural expectations. Meanwhile, the masculinization of women is accelerating, with increased assertiveness, risk tolerance, and leadership ambition challenging traditional gender roles. Unlike wild mammals, where masculinity remains crucial for species continuity, human societies actively reshape these traits, often detaching them from biological imperatives. This shift raises questions about long-term evolutionary consequences as humanity diverges from the natural selection pressures that govern the wild. A feminization of men is often characterized by a shift away from traditionally masculine traits encompassing physiological, behavioral, psychological, and sociocultural dimensions. Physiologically, a reduction in muscle mass, increased body fat distribution in the hips and thighs, gynecomastia, softening of facial features, and decreased body hair indicate a decline in testosterone influence. A higher pitched voice and a general loss of physical robustness further reflect hormonal imbalances that contribute to feminization. Behaviorally, a diminished inclination for risk-taking, avoidance of confrontation, and excessive emotional expressiveness suggest a weakening of traditionally masculine traits. While emotional intelligence is crucial, heightened sensitivity and passivity often correlate with a reluctance to engage in competition or leadership. A preference for aesthetics over functionality, increased concern for external validation, and dependence on social approval further signal this shift. In psychological terms, reduced drive, lack of resilience, and an overemphasis on emotions over rational decision-making indicate a departure from assertiveness and strategic thinking, qualities historically linked to masculine identity. Socioculturally, the adoption of traditionally feminine roles and mannerisms, avoidance of male camaraderie, and disengagement from competitive or physically demanding activities reflect broader societal changes. A decline in responsibility taking, particularly in leadership, provision, and protection, suggests a transformation in the male psyche, influenced by both environmental and social factors. While evolving gender roles challenge rigid classifications, the biological and evolutionary consequences of diminishing masculinity warrant attention. The interplay of declining testosterone levels, lifestyle choices, and societal expectations shapes this phenomenon, raising questions about its long-term implications on individual identity, societal structures, and evolutionary trajectories. Understanding these changes requires a rational and scientific approach, moving beyond cultural sensitivities to explore the biological and psychological realities underpinning this transformation. Masculinization of women refers to the development of traits traditionally associated with masculinity, encompassing physiological, behavioral, psychological, and sociocultural dimensions. Physiologically, increased muscle mass, reduced body fat in the hips and thighs, a deeper voice, and excessive body or facial hair, hirsutism, indicate heightened androgen influence. Broader shoulders, a more angular facial structure, and changes in fat distribution reflect hormonal imbalances, often linked to increased testosterone levels. In extreme cases, conditions such as polycystic ovary syndrome, PCOS, can further contribute to these physical manifestations. Behaviorally, an increased inclination for risk-taking, assertiveness, and dominance signifies a shift toward traditionally masculine tendencies. A strong competitive drive, reduced emotional expressiveness, and a preference for functionality over aesthetics suggest a psychological transformation. Women exhibiting masculinized traits often display greater independence, directness in communication, and a higher tolerance for confrontation. While these traits can enhance leadership capabilities and problem-solving skills, excessive masculinization may lead to a disconnection from conventional nurturing and empathetic roles. Psychologically, a heightened focus on logic and strategy over emotional considerations, a greater need for autonomy, and resilience in adversity indicate masculinization. Lower neuroticism, reduced sensitivity to social validation, and a natural inclination toward leadership and structured thinking further characterize this shift. Socioculturally, the rejection of traditional feminine roles, diminished interest in maternal instincts, and active participation in male-dominated spheres highlight broader societal changes. The increasing presence of women in high-stakes competition, leadership positions, and physically demanding environments reflects these evolving dynamics. While gender roles are fluid and influenced by biology, environment, and culture, the masculinization of women raises critical questions about its long-term implications. Whether this shift enhances adaptability or disrupts social equilibrium depends on the balance between biological predispositions and the demands of an evolving world. Should we erase modern civilization and fall back to the roots of our species? Should we trample on the individual rights for the sake of the species? Should we continue on this evolutionary process and attain singularity? What if propagation could continue despite singularity and each had individual rights? That I leave it to the perceptions of the reader. Those with traditional views will tend to restore gender roles and collective choice, while those with liberal views will tend to favor individual choices. Are humans at the end of evolution? Humanity's unique capabilities and technological advancements suggest that we could represent the endpoint of evolution as traditionally understood. Through a combination of cultural, technological, and biological phenomena, we have profoundly diminished the natural mechanisms that drive evolutionary change. Humans have transcended natural selection by mastering technology. Modern medicine, genetic engineering, and artificial intelligence have enabled us to overcome biological limitations and environmental pressures that once shaped the trajectory of life. Individuals with traits that might have been disadvantageous in the past now survive and reproduce, a mockery of natural selection. Cultural evolution now moves at a pace that renders biological evolution almost insignificant. Human progress is driven not by genetic adaptation, but by the rapid evolution of ideas, technologies, and social structures. Innovations spread globally at lightning speed, transforming how we live without altering our DNA. Globalization has created a more genetically interconnected world, coupled with this cultural dominance. Extensive gene flow between populations has homogenized the human gene pool, reducing the genetic divergence that historically led to the emergence of new species. Furthermore, humanity no longer relies on biological adaptation to survive environmental challenges. We reshape the world to meet our needs, from controlling climates to designing cities and managing resources. We have removed many of the traditional drivers of evolutionary change by eliminating selective pressures like predation, disease, and harsh environmental conditions. Unless a drastic external event like a meteor strike disrupts this trajectory, humans could be the endpoint of evolution in our lineage, marking the shift from nature's chaos to deliberate stability. Humans and religions. Human society, to change or not. The tendency to change within a society is fundamentally rooted in human nature, where individual cognition plays a key role. Every person with a functioning mind is capable of generating novel ideas, which they naturally seek to explore. This exploratory nature leads to deviations from societal norms, making change an inherent characteristic of human societies. While change can usher progress, its beneficial or detrimental outcomes are often unpredictable. What remains certain, however, is the anxiety that accompanies change. This anxiety arises from uncertainty and fear of the unknown, driving societies to establish mechanisms to regulate behavior and maintain stability. To mitigate the chaos of unchecked change, societies develop tools like religion, traditions, cultural practices, and legal systems. These frameworks define boundaries of acceptable behavior, creating social order by distinguishing between good and bad conduct. The flexibility or rigidity of these boundaries varies across cultures. For instance, liberal societies often provide wider gray areas, allowing greater freedom of thought and behavior, while conservative societies impose stricter norms to preserve their cultural identity and stability, survival of the identity at the cost of individuals' freedom. Ancient tools like religion and culture serve not only to guide behavior, but also to occupy the mental and physical energies of individuals, ensuring adherence to established norms. These tools often demand conformity in thought and action, limiting the scope for deviation. Additionally, they create mechanisms for self-regulation and societal policing, fostering a collective sense of accountability. For example, religious doctrines often prescribe daily rituals that anchor individuals within the framework of tradition, while cultural norms reinforce values through storytelling, ceremonies, and shared practices. Although these systems are vital for maintaining societal cohesion, they can also stifle innovation and individual autonomy. The balance between regulation and freedom ultimately determines a society's capacity to adapt to change while preserving stability. Resistance to change often stems from an adherence to the values, norms, and beliefs of the past, shaping societies in ways that can either foster progress or inhibit growth. Societies deeply rooted in historical norms tend to resist change because these values are perceived as integral to identity and stability. For instance, traditional communities that maintain rituals or practices passed down through generations often view change as a threat to their cultural continuity. Such resistance can be observed in debates surrounding modernization versus preservation, whether in language, customs, or even technological adoption. Conversely, societies that embrace the abandonment of outdated norms often pave the way for innovation. Consider the Industrial Revolution in Western Europe. While traditionalists resisted the mechanization of labor, societies that adapted created unprecedented economic growth and technological advancements. Similarly, the rapid technological acceptance in countries like South Korea today contrasts with more conservative resistance observed in regions where past norms dominate public policies. Living in the past, however, should not always be viewed negatively. Cultural preservation often ensures social cohesion and identity. But how far back we cling, to the previous decade, century, or millennium, defines the extent of resistance. For example, the Amish community in the United States thrives on an 18th century way of life that brings peace and stability to its members despite stark contrasts with the modern world. The illusion of living in the future, on the other hand, disrupts the present by creating undue stress. A fixation on future technological or societal states, often idealized, risks neglecting the immediate experiences that contribute to happiness. Societies or individuals overly invested in futuristic aspirations can undermine current well-being, as seen in speculative bubbles or utopian pursuits. Balance lies in valuing the present while selectively adopting past values and planning for the future without obsession, ensuring stability and happiness. The existence of a society hinges on its ability to regulate change while preserving stability. Human nature, driven by individual ideas and tendencies to explore, inherently deviates from norms, making change inevitable. To manage this, societies establish frameworks like religion, traditions, culture, and laws to define acceptable behaviors and maintain order. These tools shape thought and action, creating a balance between conformity and innovation. While restrictive systems limit freedom, they ensure cohesion, offering peace and predictability. Societies thrive by adapting to change, accommodating individuality within defined boundaries, and fostering a collective identity essential for their continuity. The adoption of science and technology has done incredible things for human existence. Science and technology have significantly increased human lifespan through advancements in medicine, sanitation, and nutrition. Vaccines, antibiotics, and treatments for chronic diseases have reduced mortality. Improved diagnostic tools and surgical techniques enhance early detection and intervention. Global life expectancy increased by more than 6 years, rising from about 50 years to 73 years. Change in society has to continue. What would I want for myself and my society? I desire the freedom to live authentically, make choices unhindered by unnecessary constraints, and pursue a life defined by individuality and fulfillment. For my society, I envision continuity, preservation of its essence and identity with some degree of upliftment. While change is inevitable and could be beneficial, I would resist its complete replacement, as society holds an intrinsic value simply because it is mine. I hope that you see a contradiction as what I want for myself and what I want for my society. Since my time in Denmark, I have yearned for a society where education and healthcare are freely accessible, a smaller population fosters harmony, and individuals refrain from policing one another's choices, simply adhering to the fundamental norms of the common good while living life without troubling others seems ideal. In the end, a wild mind is not fit for a stable society. Sanskrit English translation: Matrin pazet akil hidjetrim atmodev paranapi pashyat. Yudhan tyazat spardhan tyazat prachakrammakramam. Janni prithvikam dukha aste janko deva sakla dam yat datta dadwan janta shreyo bhuyat sakla jananam. Cultivate friendship with all. Look upon others as thyself. Renounce war. Forswear competition. Give up aggression on others. Earth, our mother, is here to fulfill our desires, just like Kamadhenu. God is compassionate to all. Ye people of this world, restrain yourself, donate, and be kind. May all people be happy and prosperous. A rapidly changing society breeds uncertainty, which in turn fosters anxiety. The constant flux makes it difficult to find grounding, both in individuals and the broader social structure. Trust is vital. When it erodes between people, it creates personal disconnection. But when it erodes within society, the entire framework becomes unstable. While change is necessary for growth, I believe it should be gradual and purposeful, moving toward greater stability and peace. This kind of change nurtures trust, security, and resilience, allowing individuals to thrive within a harmonious society rather than struggling with the chaos of rapid, unchecked transformation. I came to realize that the flexibility of mind is the hallmark of humans. All other animals, they do not have either mind or flexibility. Only modern humans are endowed with the capacity to stretch the mind in a flexible and expandable way. The objective of human life, happiness or peace? Peace is more about existence, while happiness is about standing among peers. Happiness is intrinsically linked to being part of a group, where comparisons and achievements create a sense of fulfillment. In a remote forest, away from others, peace prevails, a quiet contentment born from solitude. However, the drive for progress and standing within a group brings temporary euphoria and happiness. While happiness is fleeting, peace endures as a lasting state. Peace diminishes when we allow our thoughts to drift too far into the past or future, particularly in the context of negative experiences or unattainable goals. The further we detach our minds from the present moment, the more we expose ourselves to regret, resentment, or fear, emotions that erode our sense of calm. A distant past filled with unresolved pain or a future that seems overwhelmingly unreachable creates mental turbulence, making peace elusive. We can nurture a more peaceful state of being by anchoring our thoughts closer to the present and embracing time as it unfolds. I must concede that my moments of peace are only when I play tennis or badminton. All other times, my mind runs through hells of overthinking, and dare I stop it. On the other hand, happiness is deeply tied to how we perceive ourselves compared to our peers. Happiness is relative. The one with fewer pains is happier in a room filled with people with more pain, and a millionaire is unhappy among the billionaires. The larger the group of peers and the more favorable our standing among them, the greater our happiness. Excelling in areas such as accomplishments, wealth, comfort, relationships, and personal success amplifies this happiness. Being at the top of the social or personal scale fosters pride and satisfaction. However, when one finds themselves at the lower end of these comparisons, feelings of sadness and inadequacy grow. Happiness thrives in relative standing. It is not merely about individual achievement, but how it measures up against the achievements of others in our social and personal spheres. The challenge lies in mastering the balance between pursuing happiness and maintaining inner peace. Sadness emerges when this balance falters through unfulfilled desires or disconnection from the self and the group, disrupting tranquility. I have managed well enough to portray a happy life. Owing to our fitness for existence, reciprocal cooperation, structured civilization, and technology, our existence is assured until old age. That means we have surplus time that we have to spend and surplus energy that we could use. Life is a finite span, where time, a limited and periodic resource, is the fundamental commodity for accomplishing tasks. Every moment is an opportunity for work, progress, and achievement, but once spent, it cannot be reclaimed, making the efficient use of time paramount in shaping existence. There is nothing called not spending time, one way or the other. The time is spent. Life is spent. The fear of failure and fear of the future are deeply intertwined emotions that often paralyze action and cloud judgment. Fear of failure stems from the dread of inadequacy, rejection, or disappointment, leading to hesitation and avoidance. Similarly, fear of the future arises from uncertainty, where the inability to predict or control outcomes breeds anxiety. Both fears can confine individuals within a comfort zone, stifling growth and potential. However, embracing these fears as natural responses rather than barriers allows for transformative growth. They become opportunities to build resilience, refine strategies, and cultivate a mindset that views challenges as stepping stones. I have come to understand that I will make mistakes and fail. There were mistakes in what I said and did. There are mistakes now, and there will be mistakes in the future. I have come to terms with my imperfections. All that remains in life is to try a little harder and not fall into a routine. Instead, I strive to change with the times and tides, to adapt and seek more, a bit more, without losing my mind in the process. That is the fulfillment I seek in life. But there are times when anxiety drags me down and beats me badly, as it did many times before. That is all right. I'm getting used to it. Finding a driving force or passionate purpose to spend the surplus energy and time is pivotal to a meaningful existence. It serves as an anchor for the mind, offering direction amid the complexities of life. This purpose fuels motivation, instills resilience, and transforms ordinary tasks into fulfilling endeavors. It aligns one's abilities, interests, and values, creating a sense of coherence and identity. A passionate pursuit sustains focus, even in adversity, by providing a reason to persevere. Whether drawn from personal ambitions, societal contributions, or intellectual curiosity, this force transcends mere survival, allowing individuals to flourish. Cultivating such a purpose requires introspection, exploration, and the courage to commit. I have realized that each of us needs a sport and an art to keep our bodies healthy and our minds sane. Surrender to a purpose to be occupied in the time, thought, and action. Our minds are drawn to whatever reinforces our well-being. They favor those who like us, who look, speak, act, think, and believe as we do. This cohesive force, an intrinsic mental module, once ensured the survival of our ancestors, binding early societies together. However, in the mosaic of identities that defines modern existence, this very mechanism becomes a barrier. The instinct that once safeguarded kinship now resists divergence, making it difficult to embrace those who look, live, behave, or believe differently from us. We are far from achieving a long, peaceful, and harmonious society. We propagate misinformation, mask ignorance, and impede progress. While we eagerly adopt anything that increases pleasure or reduces pain, we remain unwilling to accept knowledge that challenges our beliefs or sense of self. This mental rigidity is not only ingrained in us, but is passed down to our children and students, perpetuating cycles of division. Friction inevitably arises in this mosaic of identities, where words alone can wound egos, trigger conflict, and even lead to violence. There is no solution other than inculcating flexibility of the mind. Until the day arrives when teachers and parents teach bare-naked philosophy and psychology in homes and schools, we will never have a truly peaceful global society. The only other path is for each individual to confront their own mental inertia, the dead weight of fixed thought that grows heavier each day. This is a battle not against others, but within ourselves. I, too, hope to remind myself to fight it every day. Cheers to the flexibility of the mind. Imagine if each generation were taught to distinguish true information from misinformation, and if each generation shared its ignorance as a challenge for the next. The strides we could make and the truths we could savor, even the bitter ones, would be profound. Happy physical existence and happy mental evolution. Sanskrit-English translation. Sarve bhavantu sukhina, sarve santu niramya, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschid dukha bhavet. Shanti, 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 may all be happy, may all be free from illness, may all see what is auspicious, may no one suffer. On peace, peace, peace.